And our next speaker encapsulates this type of leadership and responsibility that we all feel. He spent his career as a musician, and more by happenstance than design, had an encounter with a Ku Klux Klan member that changed the trajectory of his work. He now focuses on changing people's minds and in helping KKK members to leave the Klan. Please join us in giving a warm welcome to Daryl Davis, who will be in discussion with Rabbi Isaiah Rothstein, head of JFNA's Jewish Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion efforts, and a real person who has helped Cabinet itself have these difficult conversations. Welcome to you both.
Wow, we're here together. Shalom,
Indeed.
shalom.
Shalom.
And good morning, friends. It's good to be here with you.
Good to be here with everyone. Thank you.
You know, Daryl, I'm so honored that I have the ability to be here with you and engage in conversation. With a world-renowned activist, musician, and bridge builder, Daryl Davis, in the flesh. So Daryl, you have spent the last 3 decades of your life transforming the minds and hearts of neo-Nazis and KKK members, attuning and tuning to people with music and so much more.
And atoning.
And atoning. Is that what you just said?
Yes.
Attuning and atoning. I love that. And during our short time together, Daryl, my hope is that we'll be able to learn from you, hear your invaluable insights on how we all combat and mitigate hate, anti-Semitism, racism in all its forms. We want to also learn from you about your process, on how you approach building authentic and resilient relationships across difference, and especially relationships that flourish, that are able to be empowered and continue and sustain. So to frame our discussion, I thought I would just take a moment to get grounded in our Jewish tradition, to just ask the question, anti-Semitism, min haTorah minayin, as the rabbis would say. Where do we find the roots of anti-Semitism and hate in our tradition? So one might look first to Pharaoh, and we see Pharaoh's decrees of being completely rooted with his laws and policies to inflict psychological terror. The words in the Torah say, Hava nitchach ma bo. Let us outsmart them. Let us play a game of shifting people's consciousness. We could also look a little bit after that scene, where we see just moments after the nation flees from being enslaved for 400 plus years, that a nation of Amalek attacked the tired and the weary, those recently who actually have lost loved ones on the journey out of Egypt. And the verse states, Asher karcha baderech, that they were happened upon, that somehow people were struck. And unfortunately, friends, this is not just the only example from Amalek. And even if we look just one step further back, going all the way back to the beginning, we look at the very beginning of the Torah and we see the first hate crime in Jewish history when Cain kills his brother Abel. And when God asks Cain, where is your brother? His response, I almost picture him like rolling his eyes at God almost and saying, Hashomer achi anochi? Am I my brother's keeper? And what's interesting is many commentators say, it's not the fact that he killed his brother that was the sin. What was his grave sin? Not that he hated his brother, not that he killed his brother, but that he didn't see his brother as his keeper. He didn't see himself as the keeper of his brother. He saw his brother as other. And so, Daryl, as we're here with you today, and we're discussing this activation, empowering each other to sustain our work around fighting and combating anti-Semitism, Daryl, the Washington Post says about you that you make it your business to meet with people who hate you. Now that's, whoa, but let's just also keep in mind, meet, not tweet. You're not tweeting at people, you're meeting people where they're at. And that in itself is super refreshing. So I hope we could just start by asking, tell us a little bit about yourself, and also, how have you changed the minds of people who hate you?
Okay, well, first of all, I'm age 63. I was born in Chicago. My parents are from Virginia, Roanoke and Salem. Thank you, the home of the blues. All right. But I was a child of parents in the U.S. Foreign Service. So I grew up as an American embassy brat, traveling around the world, starting at the age of 3 in 1961. And how it works is you're assigned to a country for 2 years, and then you come back home here to the States. You're here for a few months, maybe a little bit longer, and then you're back overseas to another country for 2 years, back and forth, back and forth. So my first experience with school was overseas. I did kindergarten, first grade, third grade, fifth grade, seventh grade overseas. And my classrooms, starting in 1961, right, my classrooms were filled with kids from Nigeria, Italy, Japan, Israel, Czechoslovakia, Australia, Sweden. Anybody who had an embassy in those particular countries, all of their children went to the same school. So if you were to open the door to my classroom and stick your head in, you would say, this looks like a United Nations of little kids. Because, well, truly, because that's exactly what it was.
Wow.
And when I would return home after my dad's assignment with the Embassy and State Department back here, I would either be in all black schools or black and white schools, meaning the still segregated or the newly integrated. You know, just because desegregation was passed by the Supreme Court in 1954 didn't mean it happened in 1955, right? So it took a while. And I did not have that multicultural environment in my classroom here. What I had overseas was my norm. That was my baseline, because that's what I first saw. And literally, I was living probably about 10 years ahead of my time in that environment, because that the term multicultural didn't even exist back then. I remember when it came about, it was multi-cultural. Now it's all one word. But to me, it was just the norm, right? So I was living in that environment 10 years before it came here to my own country. Well, in 1968, we had just come back. I was 10 years old, just come back to the States. And I was in a school in which I was one of 2 black kids in the entire school. Myself in 4th grade, a little black girl in 2nd grade. I didn't really, associate with her, because being a big, bad 4th grader, you don't hang out with the 2nd graders.
Yeah.
So all of my friends were white, and because there were no other black kids, mostly 4th and 5th graders. And some of my guy friends invited me to join the Cub Scouts, which I did. I was the only black scout in the area, and we had a parade along with the Girl Scouts, Brownies, Boy Scouts, 4-H Club, and different organizations. And I was the only black participant. The streets were blocked off, sidewalks were lined with nothing but white people waving and cheering and having a good time. We got to a point in the parade route when suddenly I was getting hit with bottles and soda pop cans and small rocks and debris from the street. Having never experienced this, my first thought was, oh, these people over here, they don't like the Scouts. That's how naive I was. I didn't realize I was the only Scout getting hit until my den mother, Cub master, and troop leader all came over and huddled over me with their own bodies and escorted me out of the danger. I saw that nobody else was getting this protection. So now I'm trying to figure out what had I done to cause these people to do this. It was only about 4 or 5 people, a couple adults and a couple kids about maybe a year or 2 older than me. And they wouldn't answer my question. I'd say, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? All they would do is shush me and rush me along, telling me everything's going to be okay. Well, at the end of the parade route, I went home, and my mom and dad they were not there at the parade. They were putting mercurochrome, that sticky red stuff, and Band-Aids and alcohol on me, getting me cleaned up, and asking me, how did you fall down and get all scraped up? I told them I didn't fall down. I told them exactly what happened. And for the first time in my life, my mom and dad sat me down and explained what racism was. Believe it or not, I had never heard the word racism. I had no clue what they were talking about. My 10-year-old brain could not process the idea that someone who had never spoken to me, someone who had never seen me before, someone who knew absolutely nothing about me, would want to inflict pain upon me for no other reason than the color of my skin. It made absolutely no sense. So I didn't believe my parents. I didn't know why, but they were lying to me, because that idea does not even exist. And these people who were doing this to me did not look any different to me than my friends in school or their parents who treated me rather well, or my little French friends, or my Swedish friends, or my German friends overseas. So my parents had to be wrong. About a month and a half later, Martin Luther King, that same year, was assassinated on April 4th, 1968. I remember it very clearly. Every major city in this country, including where you're sitting right now, Washington, D.C., burned to the ground in the name of this new word I had learned called racism. So now I understood that this thing does exist, but I didn't know why it existed. So I formed a question in my mind, which was, how can you hate me when you don't even know me? And for the next 53 years, I've been looking for the answer to that question. And I bought books on black supremacy, white supremacy, anti-Semitism, the Nazis in Germany, the neo-Nazis over here, all these, the Klan, all these books talked about it, but they didn't explain why. And let's move forward. 10th grade, I'm going to high school, right up here at street in Montgomery County, Maryland. And 1974, we had a class called the POTC, which stood for Problems of the 20th Century. Had a great teacher, loved him. And he would, the class was for seniors, but I was taking it as a sophomore. He would bring in controversial speakers to our class to address the seniors and then, get to ask them questions, et cetera. On this day, at my high school in Rockville, Maryland, in 1974, he brought the head of the American Nazi Party to our classroom. You could never do that today, but we're talking 1974. But I tell you what, I'm glad he did do it, because that put me on the trajectory that I'm on today, okay? Let me just give you a little bit of background. For those of you who are out of town, those of you who live around here, you probably know. The American Nazi Party was formed right here, 20 minutes from where you all are sitting right now, right across the Potomac River in Arlington, Virginia. Their headquarters still stands there, but it's no longer their headquarters. It's like it went to being a recording studio to a coffee shop. But it's right there on Wilson Boulevard in Clarendon. And the guy's name was George Lincoln Rockwell. I had one of his daughters for a teacher. She disavowed her father completely, didn't want anything to do with him. But anyway, George Lincoln Rockwell founded the party. He was always at odds with Martin Luther King. Well, he was coming out of a dry cleaner's laundromat down there on Wilson Boulevard and got into an argument with one of his own members of his American Nazi Party, a guy named John Poulter. And John Poulter murdered Lincoln Rockwell right there on the sidewalk. Well, Lincoln Rockwell's right-hand guy was a guy named Matt Cole, K-O-E-H-L. That day, Matt Cole was the one who came to my school, along with his right-hand guy, Martin Kerr. The last time you heard of Martin Kerr, he was there in Charlottesville at the Unite the Right rally. Now, Matt Cole, I was 15. Matt Cole stood at the front of my class espousing the views of white supremacy. And he pointed at me and another black person in the classroom and said, "We're going to ship you back to Africa." And then he went like this, "And all you Jews out there, you're going back to Israel." And I just sat there looking at this guy like, what is this man talking about? And one of my classmates piped up and said, "Well, what happens if they don't want to go?" And Matt Cole said, "Oh, they have no choice. If they don't leave voluntarily, they will be exterminated in the upcoming race war," quote unquote. Those were his exact words. That was the first time I ever heard the term race war. I'm thinking, what is this man talking about? Now, I didn't confront him. I wasn't afraid of him, but I did not confront him because I was 15 years old, and I came from a generation where you respect your elders as figures of authority. Not that I agreed with him, but he was my elder, so I'm just going to sit there and listen to him. Well, later that day, I was standing by my locker. I was the only one in the hallway. Matt Cole and Martin Kerr were leaving. They'd been there all day addressing other POTC classes. They saw me and paused right in front of me. They didn't say anything. They just looked at me and sneered at me, and then they started laughing and went on down the hall and out of the school. And I decided then and there, I need to learn more about this. And I asked my father and my mom about it, and my dad showed me, I don't know where he got it, but he showed me some film footage of Nazi soldiers beating up a Jewish woman during World War II. And it brought tears to my eyes. And I didn't understand that. And then somebody, we watched the David Susskind show together, and he had somebody on there advocating for the destruction of Jewish people. I didn't understand that. And all of that put me on this quest to learn more about hatred. 8 years later, after I graduated high school in '76 and graduated college in 1980, in 1982, which was 8 years after I met Matt Cole, he was right over here protesting in front of the White House, a silent protest. Nobody knew they were going to be there. He had about 13 or 15 Nazis. They were not wearing Gestapo uniforms or swastikas or SS insignias. The police didn't even know about it. They were right in Lafayette Park, which is right across the street from the White House. I'd found out about it. And so I went down there. I felt I had to confront him because I did not confront him when I was 15 in 10th grade. But now the dynamic had changed. Yes, he was still my elder, but I'm 2 years out of college. I'm 24 years old. So rather than it be child to adult, it's now adult to adult. So I found out about it. And back then, you could drive up and down the 1600 block of Pennsylvania Avenue. You can't do that today anymore unless you're law enforcement. So I went down there, I parked my car, and I waited. And this van came. And about 13 to 15 of these American Nazis got out. There was Matt Cole and Martin Kerr, the same two guys who came to my school 8 years prior. You never forget the face of somebody who tells you they're going to send you somewhere, whether you want to go or not. If you don't go voluntarily, you will be exterminated. So Matt Cole got his people all lined up. They were all wearing dark black suits, and they stood there facing the White House across the street. Now, there were other protesters in the park, nuclear weapons, this, that, and the other. You know, if you want to see protests 24/7, 365 days a year, you go to Lafayette Park. They're always there. So nobody even knew who these people were. I'm sure the White House knew, but, you know, passers-by didn't know. It was lunchtime. I knew. So I walked right over there to Matt Cole, and I said, Matt Cole. And he jumped in the line like, who is this black person who knows my name? And he says, can I help you? And I said, well, he says, can I help you? Do I know you? And I said, well, you spoke at my high school. And he said, what high school would that be? I told him. He looked at me, he goes, oh, yes, I remember you. That was a long time ago. I said, yes, 8 years ago. Do you recall what you told me? He said, yes. Nodded his head. And I said, well, I'm still here. And well, he said, I can see that. What can I do for you? And I said, well, I just want to know who the heck gives you the authority to make permanent travel arrangements for me? And he says, what's your name? I said, Daryl Davis. He shook my hand. He held my hand in his hand real tight. I learned this technique. It's a good technique. I applied it to a Klan leader one time, and it worked. But anyway, he held my hand in his hand real tight, and he shook his finger in my face. And he says, Mr. Davis, you have to understand one thing. It is in the interest of your race, the black race, to be a pure race. And you cannot be a pure race unless you are a strong race. And you cannot be a strong race if you are miscegenating with other races. It is in the interest of my race, the Aryan race, which is what he calls the white race, to also be a pure race. We are becoming a mongrel race by miscegenating with mud races such as yours. So anybody who is a non-Aryan is a mud race. And he went on and on with, with his white supremacy lecture. And then he told me about the race war. And it's called RAHOWA, R-A-H-O-W-A, RAHOWA, which stands for Racial Holy War. And he said it's going to happen right around 2042. Now, back then it didn't have a whole lot of significance to me, but that year has a lot of significance. When I was a child, the black population in this country was 12%. Native Americans, 1%. Hispanic people around 2%, Asians right around 3%. White people were around 84, 86%. Today, black people remain just above 12%, almost 13%. So we really haven't grown. Native Americans around 1%. Asians around 6%. And Hispanics have gone to 17 point something percent. If you take just 12% black people and 17% Hispanic people, that by itself is 29% non-white. And that is very troubling to a lot of people. And they see this happening. And it is well predicted in the year 2042, for the first time, this country will be 50-50. 50% white, 50% other. And while there is a large percentage of our population, of our white population, that has no problem with that, hey, you know, it's evolution, this is what happens. There's also a large swath that does have a problem with that, because this country was built on a two-tier society, white supremacy at the top and slavery at the bottom. And as we progressed like this, perhaps like this, but never like this. And so when you have sat on the throne of power for 400 years, you don't want to get off. You look at the last guy who sat on the throne of power for 4 years. He didn't want to get off. He still doesn't buy it that he lost. But nonetheless, that's the attitude of many people. And back when I first started doing this stuff, it was just the Klan, some neo-Nazis, some white power skinheads. You know, that was it. Today, you got the Klan, the neo-Nazis, the white power skinheads, the alt-right, the Proud Boys, the Boogaloo Boys, the Oath Keepers, the Three Percenters, on and on and on. And they're all saying, come join us. We're going to take our country back. We're going to build that wall. We're going to make America great again, and all this other stuff. And people, out of fear, are going to join these organizations. Now, to the anti-Semitism part, in this country, the Klan was, which is the first and largest at the time gang, if you will, of racists and anti-Semites. But in the beginning, when it was first founded in 1865, and then it went dormant in 1871, there were Jews and there were Catholics in the Klan. The Klan was simply a reflection of the Confederacy. And then the United States Congress passed the Ku Klux Klan Acts of 1871, which drove the Klan underground. All right? They were reborn in 1915 with the film Birth of a Nation. And the new leader of the Klan had new bylaws: no Catholics, no Jews. And there were the reasons why there are certain things you have to abide by when you join the Klan. You take an oath that you do not reveal Klan business to any aliens. Aliens are what they call non-members. And you have to hold allegiance to the United States. Catholics, they held allegiance to the Pope over in the Vatican, which is in Rome, not the United States. That's one reason why they were barred. Also, another rule was you cannot reveal, like I said, any Klan business to any aliens. So if you go out and night ride, lynch somebody, or bomb somebody's church or whatever, Catholics go to their priest and confess. Well, the priest is an alien, so you're revealing Klan business to an alien. So they barred Catholics. They barred Jews simply because they wanted white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. And while Jewish people believe in the existence of Jesus Christ, they don't accept him as the Son of God. So they were barred for that reason. When numbers went down, and in 1959, starting around then, most of the hate was targeted towards black people. But in 1959, some of the Klan leaders in this country decided that a greater problem in this country are not black people. Yes, they're a problem, but the biggest problem are the Jewish people. And they figure that this country is being run by what they call ZOG, Z-O-G, which stands for Zionist Occupied Government. And they decided to begin targeting Jewish people. They began bombing synagogues in Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama, and Louisiana. And the anti-Semitism just grew. And they never allowed Jews into the Klan again. Yes, they began allowing Catholics into the Klan in the 1970s when the numbers went down. So what you're seeing now in this country is a result of that wave of anti-Semitism starting in the late 50s and being pervasive and now coming up. And when you see Charlottesville, I know personally all those guys who organized that rally. Wow. I've met with them. I've sat down, I've even had dinner with a number of them. Richard Spencer, Jeff Scoop, Jason Kessler, all those people. In fact, Jeff Scoop, who was the commander of the NSM, National Socialist Movement, which is the largest neo-Nazi organization in the country, he left that organization after leading it for 25 years because of me and a Muslim lady filmmaker. He's now out of that organization, and now he works very hard to de-radicalize people in that movement and bring people together. He speaks in synagogues and other places, and prevent people from joining those organizations, those movements. But in Charlottesville, you saw those people marching around saying the Jews will not replace us. That is what that is all about. They are fearing because they consider Jewish people to be a race. Now, anybody who knows science and biology knows that race is a man-made construct. We all are of the same race. We have different cultures, etc. But they can, in order for somebody to feel superior or supreme, as in white supremacist, you have to make somebody else feel inferior. So you make them the other, as you were saying, right? Black people, we were 3/5 of a human being. We were not human. We were property. We were bought and sold on the courthouse steps. Okay, just like you take a baby kitten or baby puppy from its mother and give it to some other family. That was what was happening with my ancestors. All right, so we were not considered human. So you have to dehumanize somebody, and Jews and blacks are considered children of the devil. And then they have another man-made form of Christianity, which is not Christian at all. It's a false religion called Christian identity, which in their doctrine states that Jews are not human. And a lot of them follow that, that man-made religion. So in order for them to elevate themselves, they'd put somebody else down. What we're seeing today is the fear of them being erased. What neo-Nazis and KKK and other white supremacists tell me is, Daryl, I don't want my grandkids to be brown. They call it the browning of America, or white genocide through miscegenation. And so that's why all these groups are popping up and saying, come join us. Here's what you have to look out for. I agree with everybody who got up here and spoke before the rabbi and I came up here. The time to act is now. It's beyond time. You got to act now. 2042 is just 2 decades away, 21 years. And these people, you've heard the term white flight, of course. White flight barely exists anymore in this country. The color of the landscape has changed so much that anywhere you go, there's already somebody there who doesn't look like you, all right? So they're feeling this, what they consider their erasure. Their identity is going, and they want this white ethno-state, no blacks, no Jews, etc. This is why we have to work together, and starting now. When they go and join these groups out of fear of their erasure, and the group fails to take our country back or make America great again or whatever it is they promise to do, some of these people get frustrated and they say, you know what? If the NSM can't do it or the Klan can't do it or the Proud Boys can't do it, I'll do it myself. And that's when they walk into a black church in South Carolina and shoot up 9 black people doing Bible study.
And Daryl,
Dylan Roof.
As you're sharing what you're sharing about the importance, one, of standing up in this moment, and this important moment, and the work you've done to date, we have a full day where, as we've heard, 250 plus people from 50 cities around the country to stand against all forms of hate, as we heard from Melissa and the Biden administration, the policies, the advocacy, and I could really be here with you all day on stage, and I hope we could continue these conversations.
Absolutely.
But I just was hoping if you can close with sharing just 60 seconds of advice to us as we go through our day, as we show up as individuals and as collective of the Jewish Federation system. What would you say, from your lived experience, what tactics, what advice, what guidance would you give us?
Okay. Yeah, take just 2 minutes here. One thing you want to do is partner with other people who suffer discrimination, okay? Because this is a human problem. It's not just a black problem or a Jewish problem or whatever. It is a human problem. And we need to come together as a collective voice. You don't have to you don't have to be on the front lines and do what I do, go to Klan rallies and neo-Nazi events and so forth and so on. If that's not your thing, don't do it, all right? But you don't have to be on the front line, but make sure that, you can be on the back line, you can be on the sideline, you can be online, be on some line supporting those who are leading that fight, okay? The time is now, because this is what has produced, as I said, Dylan Roof or Robert Bowers, who went into the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh and murdered 11 Jewish people, or Wade Page, who went to the Oak Creek Indian Sikh temple in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, and murdered 6 Sikh Indian worshipers, or the fellow who went to the Walmart in El Paso and shot up 23 Mexicans. Wow. These are lone wolves. We have the intelligence agencies that can infiltrate these groups. They fit the part. We got operatives who gather intelligence and report it back and squash the plots, like the group that was going to kidnap the governor of Michigan, right, and murder her. We already had operatives in in that group. However, how do you infiltrate a lone wolf? You can't. It's only one person. As we get closer and closer to 2042, you're going to see more and more lone wolves. Come together, all right? Come together, act now. The people who are leading you, support them from whatever position. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Daryl Davis. Thank you so much, Daryl.
Thank you. Thank you. One second. I just want to show you something before I leave here. This,
oh my gosh.
This is the Klan robe. It belonged to the Grand Dragon, which means state leader of Maryland. I also have the Imperial Wizard's robe, which means his boss. He was based in Baltimore, and he went to prison for 4 years for trying to bomb the Liberty Road Synagogue in Baltimore because they had a free Soviet jewelry sign in their yard. All right, he did 4 years in prison, okay? He still ran the Klan when he got out of the prison. And then he went back to prison for 3 years for assault with intent to murder 2 black men with a shotgun over in the Woodlawn right outside the Baltimore area. Now, you don't make money being a Klan leader. It's just a title. You have to have a day job. His day job, while he was doing all this crazy stuff, Baltimore City police officer, okay? He was not an undercover cop in the Klan. He was a bona fide Klansman on the Baltimore City Police Force. And there were others. Wow. This guy went on to become a very good friend of mine, which is why he gave me his Klan robe and his police uniform and renounced that ideology. Wow. People can change, okay? Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you.